Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This has been a very informative hearing, and I thank all of you on the panel for giving us your time today. Mr. Model, I know you're from Illinois, but when I was hearing your testimony, I felt like I could be listening to a story of a small business owner in any small town in my congressional district in Kansas. You just mentioned, in response to my seatmate's question, that for tax purposes, your company that simply employs about 80 people has divided the company into one C corporation, two S corporations, and an LLC. And as a CPA who did tax planning, I would just want to applaud you for the creativity for your back office folks and your tax team. However, I think it begs the question, should our tax code be so administratively complicated that a business like yours should have to engage in so much work in order to achieve just a workable tax rate at the expense of simply growing your business? And to be more pointed, would you trade this highly complex system full of loopholes and surprises at every turn for the certainty of permanent, modern, simple, and a fairer tax system that allows you to grow your business?
Well, thank you for that question. I couldn't appreciate it more. Like I said, the reason we have those complex structures, and yes, in some cases it works for us, in other cases it's hindering us, and I cannot change it. I've inherited this. We're a 100-year-old business, right? The C Corp came from the 70s, the S Corps came from the 90s, and they were all done during the times there was tax changes going on all the time and reasons to do these things. But I'd love to simplify it. Like I said, I'd love to have one fiscal year end, but I would trigger, I'm a 100-year-old company. We have retained earnings on the balance sheet, not necessarily cash, but it would trigger a huge tax liability to do that. In fact, I'm also, in the business I'm here talking today, we talked about women and minorities. My sisters both help me run the business, and really we would like to transfer ownership to myself and my sisters, so we would become a woman-owned business. In order to do that, we would trigger, again, a huge tax liability. So we can't afford to do this. I'd love to make these changes. So I would trade in a second all this mess, all this complexity, and all the time we spend on it for a simple, reduced system. And again, businesses are not opposed to paying taxes. The transportation tax is a great example. I think consumption taxes is an important focus. Why are we taxing income? We want income. Let's tax other things. You should tax the things you don't necessarily want to have, not the things you do want to have. Thank you, ma'am.
Excellent, thank you. And maybe for some of the rest of you, I think it's been reported that American businesses spend about 3 billion hours and $150 billion complying with this outdated, burdensome tax code that's on the books. Could each of you just comment quickly about the cost associated with filing your returns and what about the opportunity cost? What does it mean to your business to lose that kind of time and resources? Mr. Stevens?
So to put it in reference, our shareholders put up about $240 billion of capital for us to run the company, and they get about $12 billion, or about $2 a share in dividends. And we pay about $4 a share, or $24 billion in taxes in the United States every year. It's a number that's disclosed in our annual report. So our shareholders get half of what federal, state, and local governments do here in the United States, even though they're putting up all the capital for the business. We have about 300 people who work full-time in our tax department. We have a budget of about $100 million a year for that tax department, and we file over 250,000 tax returns in the U.S. So it's an extremely complex system that causes a diversion of funds that would otherwise be available to invest into complying, and we take pride in our compliance, in complying with the law.
Thank you. Mr. Farr?
I don't have the specific numbers, but I know how many people operate doing these taxes, and we have hundreds of people in the United States and around the world operating to fill out the tax reforms and compliances and making sure we're doing it right. And therefore, as I said earlier, I'd love to take that money and reinvest it in another part of the company. I mean, from my perspective, what we look at is we're trying to invest to grow, and I have to allocate those resources. One of the allocations is tax compliance and paying the taxes and all the forms we fill out. So clearly, could take that and put it somewhere out and invest it in the company for growth or technology for new products. So it's a huge burden for us and something we have to do by law. And I sign it by law.
Okay.
Thank you.